going to start recording the meeting, and I want you to know I'll save the chat, and we're going to start with Mary Muckle.
Okay, let's see. Now I've got that banner right in the middle of my screen. Can that go? This meeting is being recorded. Can I get rid of it?
I think it will go away on its own.
Okay, that's great.
I don't see it. Does anyone else see it?
I just pressed
You have to press continue.
because we're continued.
Continue, thank you. I'm being recorded. Great, okay. So, the original title for this webinar was What Publishers Look For in an Arrangement for Harp Ensemble. I am not a publisher, but have some strategies in writing that I think help ensemble pieces to appeal to a wide range of harpists and harp teachers. First of all, a versatile strategy for arranging and composing is writing for ensembles where not all parts are equally difficult. This is useful in teaching because most teachers have a wide range of playing skills among their students, from beginners to advanced, and there's much to enjoy and learn playing in a large ensemble of mixed level harps. Also useful in teaching are two-part arrangements with an easy part 1 part and a harder part 2, allowing student and teacher to play together in private lessons. I use this approach as early as the second lesson on the harp. Mixed level pieces are ideal for harp circles, where harpists of all skills are welcome. Mixed level pieces are excellent for harp workshops where you don't know in advance the playing level of participants, and your goal is to try and engage all players. You may be giving a workshop which introduces harp playing to complete beginners. For example, I was asked to do this in an Irish festival. The festival organizer provided me with a fleet of rented harpsicles, all badly in need of tuning. In advance of the festival, I asked Tat Stanley, a local harp maker, to make what I call paddle boards to support the harps for each needed player. This is our own design. Voila! There it is. You sit on this part and you put your harp on that part. That made some things easier for them. I also color-coded a few strings on each harp to assist in playing a very simple, satisfying part I wrote for participants, while I played a few Irish tunes with accompaniment. Here they are. I don't know whether you can see that or not. There's an example. Now, these are not the really expensive ones from Lyon and Healy. They're the ones that are used in children's craft projects. So they're probably about 10 for a penny. In my harp studio, ensemble playing is very important. In addition to private lessons, all my students participate in group classes, divided according to playing levels, beginners to advanced beginners, and intermediate to seniors. These smaller groups I combine in one larger ensemble which meets less often. We perform in festivals, concerts, and benefit performances for charity. Here are some reasons why ensemble playing works so well for me as a teacher. Beginners learn by ear while playing their own part, how to be part of a complex whole. Hearing more advanced players gives them a model to aspire to. Advanced students, by their playing, help develop the skills of less experienced players. For example, advanced players help to hold the tempo from speeding, breathe together to be sure phrases begin with a tight ensemble, lead the ensemble in easing musically tempo changes, and all learn to watch the lead player, usually me, for cues. My favorite remark from a festival adjudicator was, "You play so well together, and yet you don't have a conductor out front." Well, sort of. Solo learning and playing can be lonely. Ensemble playing helps to build musical friendships and generate enthusiasm and team spirit. It is a way for me to compete with basketball and hockey practices for my students' time. Some years ago, I had 3 harp students, still fast friends, now in their 30s, attend Heather Ewell's harp classes at St. Anne's Gaelic College on Cape Breton Island one summer. They phoned me halfway through their 2-week course to say they were practicing 3 hours a day and all had blisters on their fingers, and I was very pleased. Here is a piece, Harp and Soul, I arranged using 2 long-time popular melodies, Heart and Soul and Blue Moon. I wanted to craft a piece that inspired immediate interest and worked for all playing levels. It is written for 4 harp parts. The bass line and harmony are well known in popular music. The piece was composed and is taught from the bass up. There are at least 5 levels of playing possible for this bass line in Harp 3 and 4. And I'll just demonstrate that. So we could do, if you were using one hand, or fingers 1 and 2, or slightly more complex, or something like that. And now, then, when this bass rhythm is well established, Harp 1 enters with 10 bars of the harp, heart, and soul theme. The theme repeats, and Harp 2 enters with the Blue Moon theme. These 2 melodies work well being played simultaneously with some small adjustments. Once the 2 tunes simply played are established, Harp 1 and 2 indulge in improvisatory passages to challenge the more advanced players. As the piece winds to an end, Blue Moon in Harp 2 falls away or sets on the sun's horizon, and Harp 2 joins Harp 1 in harmony. In the middle of the piece, Harp 3 begins playing forte, a more complex improvised bass. This is a lot more fun for Harp 3 and helps to hold the tempo of any speeding beginners on Harp 4. So how to choose material to arrange or compose? Choose music that inspires you and appeals to most people. Perhaps familiar folk melodies. For example, a fiddle tune that works beautifully on harp is The Road to Lisdoonvarna. I recently enjoyed playing an imaginative arrangement of this tune by Christine Nyberger. If using popular tunes, be aware that royalties can be very costly for music still under copyright. Choose music that lies well under the fingers for harpists and lends itself to interesting counter melodies and harmony, so that the harp parts which do not have the melody can enjoy the learning and performing process. Sharing the melody between the harp parts is a good option. Play and analyze. Choose music that lends itself to a harpistic style of playing. For example, broken and arpeggiated chords, glissandos, PDLT, and soundboard tapping, which is always a great hit with my students. Play and analyze the pieces that you admire of other arrangers, composers, to understand how these pieces work so well. For me, over the years, the ensemble pieces of Alfredo Ortiz, Nancy Hurl, Becky Baxter, Joanne Meese, and Yvonne Rivual, to name just a few, have been an inspiration. Consider writing, as does Alfredo Ortiz, so that if one harp part is left out in 3-part writing, the piece is still satisfying. He often gives instructions that the easier Harp 3 may be omitted, or that the more challenging Harp 1 and easier Harp 3 may be played together, omitting Harp 2. This is very helpful if you have a limited number of players. Nancy Hurl, however, remarked, in her multi-level arrangements, the simplest part is fundamental to the piece, just as important as the more difficult parts. I always tell this to my students when we are learning her ensemble pieces. You might consider to write in such a way that the melody of one harp part can be adapted to solo instruments, such as violin, flute, or voice. In the case of voice, include the words if your tune was originally written for voice. You might also consider to write a descant for a solo instrument above your harp ensemble arrangement. When you think your ensemble piece is complete, then engage your students or colleagues to learn and play it. What you hear from a live group or harps in ensemble may not be the sound you were aiming for. Aspects of the harp, the sustain of tone, the clarity and different ranges of the instrument in ensemble are important to the overall effect of a piece. Also, ask a colleague to critique your composition, including checking for notational errors. A common error is not staying within the chosen meter. The duplet pulse of 3/4 sometimes gets confused with the triplet pulse of 6/8. This makes for difficult reading. Alfredo Ortiz has often credited Charlene Wallace for her help with corrections and suggestions. I am similarly grateful for the help of my colleague, Ottawa harpist and composer Marianne Lynn, in my own work. And I would like to end with a short ensemble, She's Like the Swallow, performed by my student Savannah Kiley and myself this spring for an online music festival. This recording was the only time we were able to play together in person during this last year of isolation due to COVID. She's Like the Swallow is a beloved Newfoundland folk song. I arranged for players 2 levels. The easier harp 1 part, written in quarter and half notes, can be played as a beginner's solo piece, as well as part of a duet. Harp 2 is in continuous 8 notes, and this keeps the momentum of the piece. The Harp 2 harmony and melodic fragment are intended to enhance the somber beauty of the melody, which is about a tragic love affair. The introduction and coda, I wanted to suggest the flight of a swallow, and this is Savannah and I playing She's Like the Swallow.
Okay, I hope you can all hear this. Let me know if you can't.
Thank you.
Were you able to hear that?
I could hear it. I don't know about that.
I couldn't hear it. Oh, okay. I couldn't hear it at all. And then I think, thank you, Mary Muckle, so much. I think maybe if we could let people hear that again, would it be okay if on the follow-up I shared that video with everybody? I'll talk to you about that. I'll find out. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary Muckle, very much. Thank you. And next up is Anna Thormahlen Jenkins. So let's see, I will spotlight you.
Hello.
Thanks, Mary, for inviting me to participate in this. I've been excited to take a look at some of my work and be able to share it. So here I go. I started working with ensemble music in general a long time ago, but with harps in the early 2000s. And most of my work has been tested by my trusty harp circle. We've been doing that probably since about 2005. And I'd like to share with you what I usually consider when I'm approaching a piece of music or something that I want to arrange. So there are basically 4 areas that I look at. The first is the most obvious. What do I want this piece to sound like? And that's the creative piece, putting that musical puzzle all together. The second is, what are the challenges within the piece that I face? The third area is a little unusual, but I like to look at what does the audience see when it's being performed. So what does it look like to them? And I guess an example of this would be very quickly, if one person is playing all this notes with one hand and their left hand, maybe right hand and left hand is doing nothing. That doesn't look so good. So I try to make it look, I call it harp ballet, make it look good. And lastly, more the publishing part of this, what does it look like on the printed page and how do you make it most accessible? So getting back to the creative puzzle of the piece, I like to think about what is the mood or the emotion within an arrangement that I want to create. What is the form of the overall piece? And what compositional techniques do I want to use to get the desired sound? I'm going to use an example today of a new project I've been working on for about a month. It's a Japanese composition. I had a couple friends give me some music that they wanted to learn. They play flute and guitar, and I play harp with them on occasion. And so it was just a beautiful melody, very short, but just beautiful. And I got all excited and decided I will make this pentatonic arrangement of this folk song. It's going to be so great. And so I delved into it. I made a couple of stabs at it. And then I thought, well, I better get into it a little deeper. So I'll Google it and see if there's anything I'm missing here. Lo and behold, when I got into the arrangement online, different people performing this piece, I learned that it was not a Japanese folk song like I thought it was. It was actually a very famous Japanese piece, a song written by Yamada Kasoku. And he was a early 20th century composer. He wrote symphonies, operas, all kinds of things. So my point with this is know your material, find out what you need to know. Don't try to pass off something that's a famous composition as a Japanese folk song. So don't make that mistake like I almost did. So getting into this piece, akatombo is a word in Japanese that means red dragonfly. So what is the sound I wanted to create? I wanted to evoke this fluttering image of this dragonfly. And I decided to use ostinato patterns to do this. And ostinatos are really effective. They're just short little patterns, and they can run through a piece and be connective tissue in an introduction, between expositions of the melody. It can be very useful. So I like using those a lot. And so back to my original considerations, the form of the piece. What is the form I wanted to use? Well, in my ostinato, I decided patterns to hook it together into having an introduction, the first exposition or the A section, and then a couple measures of interlude, another A section, which I would call A1 because it's slightly different, and then a little more interlude and an A2, and then an ending. I like having an introduction and an ending. I think it's important to kind of wrap up your material at the end. So at this point, I'm going to share my screen with you, hopefully successfully, and we'll go from there with the piece in Sibelius. So I am seeing not my stuff, but I'm seeing, I think, Mary's stuff here. Let me just check and see here. Nope, no, I'm good. I'm good. Never mind. Okay, got it. It was just in a different place. All right, so going to the first ostinato, you can see harp 1, harp 2, and harp 3. This is the score we're going to look at. And I will just let you hear the first ostinato as we go along here. Just briefly, you get a sense of the little pentatonic feel that I started out with. I hope you can hear it. So that's just the 4 measures of intro. The next little ostinato, I thought, well, if 1 is good, 2 is better, right? So here's another little pattern I created. 4 16th notes descending. Left hand comes in, picks up a couple quarter notes, and you got a little cluster and another cluster up there. So here is the next one. And there's that. And so here's what they sound like together. I'll give you both of them. Now briefly, just notice that in the second time I used it, I decided after working on the piece a while that it was much easier to play the 3 16th notes, then the left hand taking these 3 notes, and then the right hand crossing over left. So in your final looking at a piece, way down the end of the line, be sure you go over and over and over it, playing it, seeing how it fits in the fingers. So I changed all that. And now the melody comes in, and you can see how it fits together with the first exposition of the melody. So here we go with the beginning of Akatombo. I'll take it from, we're done with the intro here. All right, so here's a couple of compositional techniques that I like to use. Contrary motion, you can see the melodies going up, the ostinatos going down. I also like to use sort of a waterfall technique where a little melody, the piece of the melody, I should say, in one harp will continue on into another harp. So I like to have the harps talking to each other a little bit in the different parts. Let's go on now to the second exposition, the A1 part. I wanted the dragonfly to come in and be a little more prominent. So here's a little bit of the next dragonfly technique. This is a little flutter. I hope you can hear this. Can you hear it without distortion? Are you getting it?
Can you make it louder, Anna?
Yes, I hope I hope it isn't too much distortion. Let's try that one more time. I'm going to let you hear this now with the little flutter, and then we'll have the, this is the cluster chord that is brilliant and goes up to the top, which is kind of nice. I like to put cluster chords in. They add sort of a brilliance to it. So here we go again. Sorry. And a little imitation. The flutter happens a little lower. And a little connective tissue here. All right, so that's another technique you can use is imitation. Here's the one part leading to another part, or this part talks to this part. In this part, this waterfall technique, you can see where one part begins and they have this, another part has the same notes, and then another part drifts off from it. So listen to that real momentarily here. Okay, so now here's all of this B section. You get the melody this time. You actually get the melody. Notice it's in the lower level. It's in the low harp now. Comes the waterfall. And here's a couple of measures just to segue. It's nice to be able to connect your arrangement with a little bit of something in between. The last time I did the tune, the melody, I wanted to expand it even further. Each time I do it, I like to add a little more texture, a little more going on. And in Harp 2, the right hand and left hand will be playing the melody. So you got two octaves of melody going on. Also, I think Mary touched on this earlier. It's nice to give everybody a chance to play a fun part or to do something interesting. And so everybody gets to play the melody in this one. Something else to watch for in this one is the conversation between Harp 3, a nice big rolled chord, and then it talks to Harp 1. So Harp 3 plays, and then a brilliant chord up higher for Harp 2. It happens several times. Here they're talking to each other as the melody flows through. And lastly, before I think I'm running out of time here, but I'll play for you chords in here. Instead of just using parallel chords where they all kind of go down together, I like to try and use inversions to make them fit really nicely as the top tone melody kind of can be descending. To me, it just sounds better than the parallel exact movement. Lastly, in this one, this is the harmonization that is more 20th century harmonization and not pentatonic. I've got a nice little G sharp coming up here. You can see the levers flip here. I gave it to Harp 1, sorry, to Harp 3, because they had lots of time. And so this is Mr. Yamada's harmonization. I used his for this last time through. I wanted to be true to his interpretation of this piece. So here is the third and last exposition, and you can see at the very end, there's a little wrap of some of the tools used earlier in the piece that I threw into the ending. So we'll go from here to the end. Wrap up here. One last cluster. The dragonfly's flying away now. Hang on, he's got one more little flitter. There he goes. And that's my piece, Akatombo.
That's very nice.
Thank you so much. I think we all learned so much during that little 10 minutes of time there. Thank you. And I guess now we will go on to Anna D from New Zealand, who I will make the spotlight now.
Good morning. I'm not sure if any of the rest of you are in mourning, but I am here at about 9:30 on Wednesday morning. So I'm a little ahead of most of you. But don't let that bother you. I was the one who was here an hour early thinking I was late. So a little bit of background about me. I'm in New Zealand and I started playing the harp about 30 years ago when there were only a handful of harpists in the country. And not long after that, a friend and I, my one harp friend that I had back then, because there was only one harp friend in my locality, and I decided that we would start playing some ensemble music together. And everything had to be ordered from overseas. So that was the start of us starting to think we needed to put together our own ensemble music. A few years later, we had more harpists in the country. We're talking about 2001 by now, and created a few harp events where we decided we didn't want to have to buy multiple copies of the same piece of ensemble music. So again, we needed to produce the music. So some of the things that I was looking for in when I was purchasing ensemble music were very similar to Anna J and Mary M's ideas of that the parts needed to be independent. We didn't want to be playing something that was the same all the way through as one of the other parts, because then we could just drop a harpist. We didn't need to have that person. So, and it was also music that was a little bit different and unique in its arrangement, not just plinking at the strings and plunking away there, but with some effects, some glissandos, some prelude and popping and things like that. And even now, the music that I play with my ensemble, when we look for our music, it has to be something that's different, something that we didn't expect to hear played by harps and is well done. So some of the favorites that I have in composers, I'm just going to post up now for you. So it's a great big long list there that you can have a look at later, but anything by Frank Boltz, anything by Adriano Sanganito from Italy, who writes some amazingly fun stuff, or Francois Purnell from France. Lauren Scott in the UK often sends her ensemble music to my quartets to proofread for her. Anything by Steph Curcio, anything by Esther Swift in Scotland. She writes some really interesting stuff. And anything by Sherry Pack. And we love The Pirates of the Caribbean by Rachel Starr Ellis. And I just wish she'd write some more ensemble music because it's great fun. New Zealand harp ensemble composers who you may not have heard of. Gareth Farr, he writes some fantastic music, and a fellow harpist of mine, Michelle Belvin. So do ask if you want to know anything about some of those composers. What I'm going to show you today is a piece of music that I wrote for my harp ensemble, my larger harp ensemble. And we actually got to perform it again last year in between lockdown here in New Zealand, which of course have been very few and far between. We've been very lucky not to have great restrictions on what we've been doing. And let's put the screen share in here. I'm going to show you the video of it first. And this is a piece called Ed's the Cat. And Ed's the Cat was written in 2016, and since that time I have actually got 2 kittens, and when we got the kittens, my boys said to me, "Mum, you're going to have to call one Adso now." So this little clip, which was recorded last year with the harp orchestra, also features my 2 cats, Adso and Gypsy, and they're just about 4 months old.
I'm not hearing any sound.
No.
Okay. Okay, just let me try another way. I'll see if I can pick it up off you.
Okay.
Oh. Sorry, I'll just see if I can find it on YouTube. I can't find a way to share it. Hang on a second. It's playing for me. Can anyone else hear that?
Yes.
Okay, now I've just got to get the picture up. Right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so that was Edso the Cat, the video version, and that was actually a warm-up for a concert. So we had Harry the sound man moving in behind, and my son with his phone standing up watching us. So not a great quality performance. Oops, hang on, I just need to stop. What's happening there? Okay, get rid of that. And I'm going to show you the score of Edso the Cat and tell you what I have done along the way. So I'll just screen share a little again. Now, my ensemble that was playing then has been, I need to make that bigger. What's going on here? I'll just stop sharing for a minute. My ensemble that played that piece of music has been together for a couple of years now, and my harpists, even my beginner harpists, are quite experienced in what they were playing. So they are able to, they started with what I call the junior ensemble, the beginner ensemble, which is playing in unison together and then slowly getting slightly more advanced parts. So when they move into this sort of music, they're quite confident harpists, and I expect even my beginners to be able to count for themselves, and yeah, no mercy is taken on them particularly. Why can't I make that bigger? Oh, sorry, tech is not going my way this morning. Can you see the EDSO the cat score here? Yep, sorry, you get part of Harpo marks as well in this one. So the opening of EDSO is a little drone section in Harp C. Harp A is the elementary and Harp B and C are the intermediate harpists. And Harp A carries the tune in this first section. And it's a little piece of program music. So EDSO's a kitten and he's off exploring in his jungle and it's all very exciting and interesting. And at section B, end of section A, we introduced some harmonics. At section B, he finds a flittery, skittery thing that's buzzing about in the garden. And I made this not very specific because I knew if I said it's a lizard, some child was going to go, the cat's not allowed to catch lizards, that's just cruel. So it's just really, what is this? It's a flittery, skittery thing that's buzzing about. And the music starts to reflect this too, with lots of movement. A few grace notes and triplets. This was one of the hardest parts to put together to start with because people refused to count. And then once they started counting, life got much better. And then a little bit of response between the two parts. So Harp C says boom, da 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 dum, dum da da da, dum da 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 da. Harp B goes boom, da 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 dum, da 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 da. And then they sing together for a little while. And then, oh no, it's getting, I've got it. And then we get the triumphant march from EDSO. And it moves into 4/4. So it's a very easy transition with a little bit of a jazzy groove and a lever change, just one lever change in the whole piece for the third part. So that's a fun little syncopated section there at part C. And then when, just as it normally happens, when somebody gets a little overconfident, things start to go astray. So the flittery, skittery thing, whatever that may be, starts to take flight. And we get some bisbigliando. And this was really good fun to work on with an ensemble of all levels because it's the same pattern, just changing through the octaves. So Harp A plays the bisbigliando up high, and we're back into 3/4 again. And it's only a bottom note that changes all the way through this. So you get the tune sort of goes da 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 with the ripples happening above. And then Harp B does the same thing an octave lower. And Harp C does the same thing an octave lower again. So I expect even my beginners to count really well and listen. And I try to make sure there are quite obvious audio cues so that if they're not counting, they've got something that they can grasp to come back in again. And then one of the hardest parts in the piece was to get a scale coordinated. Sometimes unison or playing directly one after the other can be as hard as playing something really complicated. So it was a really good effort to just play a scale, to link a scale together and get it in time. And then EDSO decides after all that exercise that he's had enough and he's going to lie down and have a sleep. And this is a nice way to end the piece, quite lyrical and peaceful, and brings the whole ensemble back together again. The Harp A and B share the tune, they pass it between each of them, and Harp C does nice, very full up and down accompanying broken chords. So that's EDSO the Cat, a little piece of program music. Okay, so that's all I've got to offer.
Well, thank you so much. I think we all learned so much from you, from all three of you. Thank you, Anna D, Anna J, and Mary M. Thank you very much. You know, we've got plenty of time left. We were going to try to keep it at an hour. I think let's open it up to questions. And if you have a question, just unmute yourself. I was going to, you know, get the questions from the chat, but we've got plenty of time left. Let's just, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and go for it. And then either one of you three brilliant ladies can answer.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the process of getting published and contacting publishers, and how do you decide where to go with that?
Well, maybe, maybe I should answer that question. Is that okay if I answer that question, you guys? All right. A lot of people are self-publishing now. So if you've got an original work that you want to do, you can just print it out, and you can put it up on Sheet Music Plus. Harp Column Music is taking a lot of the music. I mean, we published music too, but I'm going to be putting together some kind of a presentation on how to present your music to a publisher. It all has a lot to do with, the way it's laid out. Are the page numbers in the right place? Are you providing a description for the store that you want to sell it to? There are lots of things like that. And that's all if it is just, if it is an original composition. If it is, if it's copyrighted, well, then I will have to turn that over to Linda Paul. I know you're here. Or Angie Bemis, I know you're both here. Take Annie, thank you. Okay, so yeah, that's what I would do. Let's see, how am I going to do that? Someone said, oh, I know how to do that. Okay, is that okay? All right, I don't know if that answered your question. You want to expand on that a little bit, or whatever?
That was good, thank you.
Okay, and I'll be glad to talk to you about that. If you want to email me, I can give you more information on that. But basically, if it's an original composition, you can self-publish it. Yeah, okay, we'll talk more about that. Anyone else have a question? Oh, Anna wants to say something.
To add to that, I only publish music that's in the public domain or my own compositions, and public domain rights are different in different countries. So that's something to be aware of. But places like Sheet Music Plus, if you are publishing a piece that's not in the public domain, they seem to take care of those aspects of publishing fees and rights and things like that. So I'm not too sure exactly, but I think they take care of all that side of it.
Yeah, they take care of the royalties, but they take a very large cut also, a very large cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have a question?
They have Sheet Music Plus Pro has changed the arrangement amounts again, so it's better than it was.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Linda Paul, do you have anything to add to that? You do a lot of copyrighted music.
Well, I just use Easy Song Licensing because I can get all the information about the song. I know who published it, or what the publishers are. I can get all the information. And so when I buy that license, I know I'm good for 100 downloads or 50 copies. And that one works really well for me because I have my things listed at different places, including Mary's at Melody's. So that works really well. I don't know if someone does the actual counting of how many downloads you have. I have yet to find that out. Anna, you're smiling. Is Dunwoodie, is there a different system in New Zealand? Yeah, that's what I thought. Nobody's really counting. It's up to you to be honest about buying some more downloads. But I do a lot of copyrighted music, both for solo harp and for harp ensemble. And I just find it much easier to purchase it through Easy Song Licensing.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Linda. Anyone else have any questions?
Mary, I have a question. This is
Okay.
Nancy. Some of my colleagues know I play with, and I play with a Sunday Zoom group of chamber musicians, strings, violin, viola, cello, and bass. And with only one harp always, that's been me, and a euphonium player who is a brilliant cellist who's not allowed to play the cello. So I play violin parts, and I want to thank Anna Thormahlen because your description gave me some ideas because everyone's muted. I'm trying to write harp parts from violin parts, and it's not easy to play. I use the Salvi 25 lever harp, which is very high tension, and it's not easy to play violin music on a lever harp. So what I'm interested in I've adapted just lots and lots of music, but not written down. I'm interested in learning if you have a simple melody line with, you have melody, harmony, there are usually at least 3 or 4 parts. I'm interested to learn how to write harp parts for this music, and the group has been together for so long. They're very advanced now. In the beginning, you just do one line of Beethoven. So they're heading for Verdi, Il Trovatore, the Miserere, and Prison Song. So I'd love to learn more about if you're adapting music. I've been told I could play flute music and violin music with my small harps, which I do. So I'd like to learn more about how to adapt from beautiful arrangements for strings. Just someday, if anyone has any thoughts about how to do that.
Hi, Nancy. This is another Nancy.
Hi. Oh, Nancy Hurl.
Yeah.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I perform a lot with early music ensembles, and I never really have a harp part. I always have to make a harp part. So I think I'm hearing kind of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's a combination. I do a lot of accompanying with singers, and it depends on the period style of the music. And there's a thing called continuo, which is the chord structure underneath. So you can have the 4 parts, and you can maybe combine 2 parts and then add chords to it. So there's kind of a technique. In fact, in the Baroque style with continuo, it's all about just chording and making a harmonic foundation underneath the other parts. So I think, is that kind of what you're thinking about?
Yes, so that I could just do whatever a harp could do. I can play a lot of the melody lines, but what I'd really like to do is, since everyone's muted now, including the leader, this is learning, this isn't about performance, including the educator, everyone is muted. So I would like to learn, I guess, how would a harp actually accompany the strings orchestra? If that makes sense.
If you know chords, I think knowing the fundamental chords underneath whatever style you play, whatever type of music you play, is really helpful. And then you can choose how to voice those chords. And that's what we do when we write for ensembles as well, isn't it? We're thinking, how do we turn the individual parts, put them together so we're creating a chordal harmony at times as well. I hope I'm not like off the charts here.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to meet you, Nancy Hurl. I know who you are.
Yeah.
I have 2 Lynn Lewandowski harps.
Oh, nice.
Little ones, little bitty ones.
Great.
Anna Jenkins, you were going to say something.
Yes, I in relation to what Nancy Cochran was talking about, I think now when you're all muted, I'm not real sure, but in my experience with arranging music, when you have these different instruments, you really have to consider the resonance of each instrument. Cellos will be really loud and violins get really loud, and all of a sudden you don't even hear the harp. So I think you have to consider, you know, what each instrument brings forth, the resonance of each instrument. And sometimes it's more effective if you're going to do the melody on the harp to play it doubled, so you have a voice. Otherwise you can get lost in the mix.
Excellent idea, Anna.
That's a great idea. So you would actually go ahead and play the, if you're playing the violin one and they're doing the melody, you would just double the melody.
That's one possibility. You